Alright guys, we're going to talk about this Crytek lawsuit against CIG, the update that it came out a couple of days ago. I saw this and I thought I wanted to wait to see how the media covered it. Not really, they haven't really covered it at all, which is a shocking surprise because, you know, it's not good for Crytek. But let's jump into it. So as some of you know, Crytek is currently trying to sue Squadron 42 for breach of contract. We'll just actually read the article because it's written very well done. Crytek's lawsuit against Cloud Imperium Games for supposedly breaching the contract and developing 2 games on the supposed single license has hit a weird turn. They feel in order to provide their case, they need a working copy of Squadron 42. And in order to do that, they need at least an alpha build to be released at some point. So they've requested to dismiss the claim against Cloud Imperium. Now, he doesn't talk about this, but they're asking for a without prejudice. So it's something that's missing from this article, but anyway. And delay the trial until October the 20th. So the delay of the trial, I believe, is an and/or. So if it doesn't get dismissed, and then they can delay it until the 20th. So they're basically doing those 2 things at once. Because that's when they believe some version of Squadron 42 may be released. Now, we know this obviously because of the roadmap. Obviously the roadmap is going through and is actually showing us that Squadron 42 is supposedly having a beta back in October, right? So that's when they're basing it on. But I think it's going to be delayed further than that. But anyway. Now, Eurogamer is reporting that according to court documents, due to the uncertainty of Squadron 42's release, Crytek decided to push for a delay of the trial from June 20th, 2020 to October 2020, with Eurogamer writing. Crytek moved to dismiss the lawsuit without prejudice, which is the key thing, reschedule the trial until the 13th of October 2020. Presumably, the earliest point is suspect Squadron 42 will launch in some form. CIG has yet to announce a release date for Squadron 42, but back in August 2019, it announced the Squadron 42 beta was delayed 3 months until the 3rd quarter of 2020. In court documents linked by the Redditor RISC1911, Crytek contends CIG still plans to release Squadron 42 as a standalone game, which we know, but during the talks between the lawyers, which is what known as the discovery phase of the pre-trial proceedings, such a standalone release became uncertain. It's short of that if Crytek is claiming that Cloud Imperium Games breaches their contract by making 2 games and only having 1 license to make 1 game, even though originally Cloud Imperium Games did mention they were developing both Star Citizen and Squadron 42. Now, in actual contract, the Crytek claims they breached. So what is more is that Crytek Crytek attempted to originally argue that the suit in the contract was for using the CryEngine exclusively to develop both Star Citizen and Squadron 42. But judge proceedings over the case threw out the portion of the case, since that's not what the contract inferred. So they've lost that. That part has been dismissed. The claims are also all over the place. While they initially wanted the suit become Cloud Imperium Games, didn't exclusively stick with CryEngine, but moved over to Lumberyard, which is an offshoot of CryEngine 3.8. As we've reported in the past, they're now claiming they believe that Squadron 42 is running on CryEngine and not Lumberyard. And that's where they're talking to delay the trial, so that when Squadron 42 releases, they can prove it's still on CryEngine. The problem is that Lumberyard engine is based on CryEngine, so anything up to the latest version of that engine that Amazon licensed will be present in the Lumberyard, therefore present in Squadron 42. And this brings up a very, very good point. How do you prove that this engine is still running off CryEngine and not Lumberyard, when literally Lumberyard is a clone of CryEngine? They've taken the version of CryEngine and then they've renamed it to Lumberyard. And then they've started adding things on top, 64-bit precision, blah, blah, blah. So how do you prove that this is not CryEngine when the coding is all the same? Obviously, you'd have to look for differences in the coding. And obviously, if it's running on 64-bit precision and stuff like that, then, is that Amazon or is that something? It's a mess. It really, really is a mess. And to be honest, I think the Crytek here is really grasping at straws, but we'll keep going. So, of course, as mentioned in Eurogamer article, Crytek is claiming that CIG may not actually have switched from CryEngine to Lumberyard, and that's another reason why they're waiting for the release of Squadron 42 to further pursue their case. They claim the game is still running on CryEngine, but why would CIG settle for a lesser codebase when Amazon Work Services? I don't know what the W stands for. Maybe work? Amazon Web Services, that's right. Provides them with the infrastructure to build the persistent universe of Star Citizen in order to meet demands of an MMO. The CryEngine was incapable of that on its own, and much of what Star Citizen began to include jutting just about everything but the core lighting system and shaders. Anyway, it sounds like a mess, and Crytek has been strapped for cash for years. Least we not forget when there were reports going around about certain Crytek studios not being able to pay its employees. Now, funny enough, those employees, a lot of them, actually jumped ship and now work for CIG. So, like, for example, Sean Tracy. Some people are claiming the trial delay is a win for both Crytek and CIG. I would say it's a win for nobody, but anyway, we'll get to that in a sec, because they claim it gives Crytek more time to potentially reach a settlement, which I don't think that CIG will actually do, while it also gives CIG more time to rack in backers and have Crytek pay for the suit, which is true, but we'll get to that in a sec. Whether or not any of that comes true is anyone's guess, but Star Citizen really has been a media roller coaster, mostly due to all the misinformation and campaigns orchestrated to derail the whole thing. And then he says, thanks for the news tip, Q Dust. I didn't know he accepted tips. I might, send out tips in the future. Okay, so, what is the breakdown of this pending dismissal? So what Crytek wants to do is Crytek wants to do one of two things. A, dismiss the case against CIG without prejudice, or B, wait until October 2020 when there's a functioning alpha build of Squadron 42. Now, we'll start with the first one. What's the downsides and the upsides for example, the whole dismissing without prejudice? So if they dismiss it without prejudice, and CIG for some reason accepts this, which would be completely stupid, what it means is that later, at some other point, Crytek can decide to reopen this investigation or reopen this court case. Without prejudice means that the case is dismissed, there's no records or anything that goes against either party, and the case is just treated like it didn't happen. Now, my understanding is that by also doing this, it also means that Crytek doesn't have to pay for CIG's legal fees. And as you remember lately, they've had to pony up after around $500,000 to cover CIG's legal expenses on the off chance they may lose. Now, losing this case is a very real possibility for Crytek because the judges already ruled most of it as loss, as a win for CIG, and there's very few things left in this court case like they were originally. It's, like I say, it really doesn't look good for Crytek. Now, why would CIG do this? Well, they wouldn't, to be honest. They would be stupid if they did, under my understanding, because what it means is that Crytek doesn't have to pay the legal fees, and they can decide later if they want to go through and reopen this court case, or they can just ignore it and let it keep going and ignore it and forget about it all happened. Now, if they dismiss it without prejudice and Crytek does not reopen this court case, that means that CIG has had to pay their legal fees on their own, meaning the backers have had to pay their legal fees. And this is the problem, right? This is where Crytek could be simply going through and saying, look, we don't have enough proof of them doing anything. We want to release this without prejudice. And, and don't worry, we'll reopen the case when we have Squadron 42 released. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. All along planning on never, ever going back into court because they realise they're losing this case. That's what I think is their strategy at the moment, is they've realised after a whole bunch of this has been dismissed from the courts, their case is looking very flimsy, and not only that, but now they've had to pony up that $500,000 on the off chance they may lose. And I think Crytek is really, really worried because, like it says in this article, there's reports they've been struggling for cash. And losing a $500,000 court case against CIG, well, that would also probably put them over the edge. So that's why I reckon Crytek wants to go through and pretend like this never ever happened, get it dismissed without prejudice, and then just basically ride off into the sunset. Meanwhile, the backers have had to sit there and had to pay for CIG's legal fees because technically Crytek didn't lose, so therefore at the end of the day, they haven't had to pay for legal for CIG. Now, CIG wants it dismissed, but they want certain requirements, and I'm not sure if we know what they are, but I think it's like requirements that like they want things released like with prejudice and stuff like that, so that at the end of the day, that Crytek would have to pay legal fees and stuff like that. That's what I'm presuming that CIG would want. Now, apart from that, the other option that Crytek has put forward is that they want it to be postponed until 2020, October 2020, when supposedly Squadron 42 will be in alpha, because they're claiming that there's going to be code that can prove they're using CryEngine and not Lumberyard. Like I said, it's based on... Lumberyard is literally based on CryEngine. If you're going to go looking at the code, it's going to be, because it's based on your product that you sold to Amazon Web Services. So at the end of the day, there's going to be some similarities in that code because it's literally based on your product that you sold. If that's the case, any game that Amazon Web Services makes with Lumberyard could be claimed to be, CryEngine. Oh, you didn't get a license for that either, and all of a sudden every game Amazon makes is now being dragged into court. I don't know. I don't think this is a winning formula. I think this is going to be thrown out of court as fast as you can possibly imagine, and I don't think the judge will work with it. I think it's going to be dismissed. So even if they do postpone to October 2020, I reckon they're going to lose the case, which is what I think that they're worried about. I really do think that Crytek is worried they're going to lose this case. They're going to have to pay $100, $150, $200, whatever $1,000 in legal fees. And at the end of the day, I think they realise that this is a losing case and they want to bail out as soon as they can. So I imagine they're going to try and do the whole dismiss without prejudice. I just don't think CIG is going to push for it. To be honest, I imagine CIG will push in the opposite direction and say, no, well, you guys wanted to go through and to drag this out. You guys were the ones that wanted to go into discovery. So now we're going into discovery and now we're going to take this to court. If I was CIG, I'd be like, stiff shit, pedal to the metal, boom or bust. You know, either way, one of us is going to win this court case. It's a risk, sure. But I think CIG's chances of winning this court case are really good. And I think Crytek knows that. And I think Crytek is literally looking for a ripcord to pull the parachute, to get out of this. And the way they can see that by doing that is dismiss the case without prejudice and then just ride off into the sunset. And meanwhile, us backers have been holding the bag for the legal fees. But you got to remember too that the money that they're using for this legal defense, that came from backers. That didn't come from CryEngine. CryEngine really does not give two schlitz who paid CIG to run this court case. All they care about is their money. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. If I was CIG, look, obviously I'm no lawyer, but my idea, I would push for the court and get it released with prejudice if they want to dismiss it, or, for example, keep going with the court case. But I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Remember, guys, I do stream on Twitch. Obviously, links in the description below. Feel free to go and check that out. Follow, you know, all the usual jazz. Apart from that, guys, I do stream like 5, 6, 7 days a week. So, obviously, go and check that out. Apart from that, guys, obviously, this video has been helpful. Please smack that like button if you're new to the channel. Welcome and subscribe. Apart from that, guys, I will see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube. Have a great night and enjoy.